Irredeemable. All right, Irredeemable is a story that's written by Mark Waid, one of the famous people in comic industries, really good writer. Um, and it follows the premise of what would happen if the world's greatest hero turned into the world's biggest villain. Um, in that regard, like the premise of it reminded me a lot of like The Watchmen, like what happens when good people go bad. I think it's an interesting concept. When you look at it from like the Watchmen perspective, or hell, even Anakin Skywalker, just seeing someone that you know, trying to walk the right path and then fall, I think is a story that all of us can kind of relate to on some level. But I picked up the comic book and I read about the first 5 pages of it in the comic book store. This is going back years ago. Um, and I was blown away by it. Spoilers, in case anybody out there is wondering, I will be spoiling this. There's 10 trade paperbacks. I have them all. I bought them all on Amazon for about 93 bucks, and that included shipping on the ones that had shipping. Most of them didn't even have it. Um, but you can buy all 10 trade paperbacks for like less than 100 bucks. My recommendation would be buy it. Even if you're not heavy into comic books, like it's an independent comic that it's a great comic book. It really just makes you look through the stereotypes and the archetypes of these characters through a different lens. What I'll be reviewing is basically the very first trade paperback, or at least the things that interested me. So hopefully I can kind of hook you guys onto these things and maybe reel you in. Um, but the first couple pages that had me hooked, and like I said, when I read it, like I was just like, I've got to buy this. I've got to see how this ends. Like this is great. And by the time I got to the end of the very first trade paperback, I, I was just like, what now? And so, I'd kind of put it on the back burner, but in the back of my head, I was always wondering, like, man, if they make another one, I'm going to buy it. And then years later, I discovered this wonderful thing from a friend from work, Noah, showed me Amazon, to which since, we work 72 hours or at least 60 hours a week at work, like Amazon becomes pretty much your best friend. You make a lot of money, but you don't have time to spend it unless you do it online. Um, so I went out, and I bought those trade paperbacks, and again, haven't regretted it once. Um, but the story takes place basically the Batman type character, or at least I feel that he's the most Batman type character. He's running through to get his family because his family is, they're all in jeopardy. The world basically, the city's destroyed. Everything's kind of turned, chaotic, and he runs home to save his family. Well, he gets his wife gets the son, and he gets his daughter, and his wife and son run outside, and you see like laser beams come from the sky down and hit them. And the one panel is them kind of looking up, the mother and son, and the next panel you see them in the blast of the laser beams, and their skeletons. At that point, like my jaw just dropped. I was like, holy shit, what the hell is this? Because it really wasn't what I was expecting, especially, it's a little graphic for a comic book. It's certainly not one that I would let, a kid read. But, maybe, teenager, but not young kid. It's a little too graphic for him. But it's such a good book. Basically, the main character, the one that's turned bad, his name is the Plutonian. He goes through his, life, has kind of a Clark Kent type persona, has the different colored or different combed hair, glasses. His hair is even brown as opposed to blonde. They never really explain how he does that, but it's one of those things where like it doesn't ask too many of those questions. It just really just gets to the heart and soul of the story because that's not really relevant to the story. But he, instead of working at like a Daily Planet type place, he works at a radio station. And basically, the character, the Plutonian, in his civilian getup, wants to propose to the Lois Lane character, to where she has feelings for the Plutonian, but not for, I think his name was Dan. She doesn't have feelings for him, but he proposes, and she rejects him and says, "I'm sorry, but I'm in love with the Plutonian." And that's when he does the whole reveal of the superhero. And normally in normal comics you would have the Lois Lane character be like, kind of taken aback or faint or something, and just get like, oh wow, I can't believe, I can't believe it was you the whole time, and oh my goodness, this is so amazing. um but this comic, like, it veered to the left real hard, and she was like, oh hell no, bitch. And so she storms into the radio station where they're broadcasting live, and she announces that Dan, I forgot what his last name is, but Dan is the Plutonian, and you see him in the background, and with his glasses off, and his shirt kind of ripped open, exposed, and he gets so pissed off at that, so he flies up to the satellites, destroys the satellite, trying to stop anyone from hearing what happened on the radio, hoping that, if he can beat the, because Superman's so fast and so is the Plutonian, and so he can get there so fast he can stop, the radio signal from getting there, so no one will hear who he is and whatnot, and it doesn't work. But it was just really an interesting take, because it's like first off, the skeleton thing with the family really threw me aback. And then this, where the Lois Lane character's like, oh, hell no, motherfucker. And that's really, like, God's honest truth. Like, I'm paraphrasing there, but that's pretty much what she's doing. It was just, again, every time I thought I knew where the story was going, it went over here. And that's what made this so interesting. And then at the end of the book, like, and the whole story, the majority of the story takes place with the other superheroes, like the Justice League of that universe. And of course you can see the nods to the Batman, or the nods to the Wonder Twins. And that's kind of like that's really cool to see that, and just see a different spin on it. But again, they're all original characters, so they're not, from DC or Marvel or anything like that. But it takes place, basically, they're trying to get their world back, because the Plutonian, basically, after the bullshit Lois Lane, spasm, she basically tells him to take a hike. Like, he zooms her off, and they go into the woods, and he tries to explain to her, like, I love you. And she's like, dude, you lied to me for years, and you must think I'm an idiot. I don't want anything to do with you. And in the panel, you can almost see his mind snap. And, like, in a sense, it was really heartbreaking, because it's like, here's a guy that, it does do flashbacks to the good old days of, where he's helping everyone out and whatnot, and it really reminds me of, like, the 1950s, 1960s type comics where, everything was peachy keen and hunky dory, and you wonder if that's really the events that happened, or if that's just, how it's remembered as. So again, it poses a lot of interesting questions. It has a lot of different outlooks. And all of the characters just bleed through the page. Just, they pop right out at you. And I don't know if that's the writing or if it's the art. I think it's probably a mixture of both. Like I said, if you read about 5 pages like I did, I don't think you'll want to put it down, because I didn't. And the ending of the book, of the first trade paperback, there's a tsunami coming. It's been a while since I've read it, so forgive me if I'm not exactly on spot on. But there's, like, the tsunami coming, and one of the heroes is trying to save these people. There's, like, tens of thousands of people there. And he the Plutonian comes up all of a sudden, and he's right there where, the hero's trying to get these people away from the water and whatnot that's rushing toward them. And he's like, Dan, you've got to help them. Please. And he's pleading with them. And just the look on the Plutonian's face, he tells the hero, he's like, pick 10. And at that point, you're kind of like, damn, like, he's only going to save 10 of them? And on one hand, you're kind of thinking, you're like, that's fucked up. On the other hand, you're like, okay, maybe there's a little redemption for this character. And so again, you don't know what's going to happen. And so the hero picks 10 people out of the crowd. And just like in true form to this comic, like I said, every time you think you know where the story is going, it veers left. He picks 10 people. And then the Plutonian kills those 10 people and leaves the rest to die. And it's just one of those things where it's like the last scene of the book was that hero who was trying to save everyone, his hands reaching out of the water, like trying to grasp onto something. And I think that was really symbolic for what the whole story was about. Like everyone's trying to get through to the Plutonian and trying to get through to Dan, and it's like they're grasping for straws and they're reaching. Maybe I read into that more than I should have. I love symbolism and stuff, but the emptiness I felt from that last panel, like it was just that one. I wanted so much to read more. And like I said, it was about a couple of years later when I went on Amazon and found all those other trades, and I had to buy them immediately because I went back through, and I've loaned the very first trade paperback to every one of my friends that loved comics. Like if they loved comics, I'm like, dude, take it, read it. They'll read it, they bring it back, they're like, dude, where's more? I'm like, oh, I don't have them. But now I'm like, yes, here, take it, bring it back, but take it, because it is really a good book. And I don't think like it's such heavy with dialogue and with content, and like originally this book was $16.99. I think for this volume, because this one is volume 7, I think for this one I paid like $4. So it's like you're getting that at a hell of a discount. Not to push Amazon stuff. But I'm just saying, like, I would spend $17 on that book because it's worth it. But go to Amazon, check it out. I recommend it. I really don't think anyone who likes comics or just likes good stories will read this book and go, nope, not for me. I've got, no joke, personally, I've got about 100 friends right offhand that I can just be like, there you go, there's the book. I've probably loaned it out about 20 times, and to any of those people that I'm friends with, like, none of them have, that I've loaned them out, none of them have ever said that they didn't like it. And they'd be pretty honest with me because my friends are pretty honest. So I would recommend getting it. Yeah, like I said, first couple pages, every time I would read the book and I'd have to go do something like mow the lawn, like I would be thinking about this book. And any book that makes you, while you're driving down the road or you're at work and you got a little downtime, any book that makes you just think about that story or think about the characters or think about moments like that's a book you need to pick up. And this book, honestly, like it's the same thing for all of my friends. So like I said, I would recommend that to anyone here. Not to push Amazon, but dude, it's cheap. Get it. You won't regret it. Like I said, here's one more. Irredeemable. And like I said, this is volume 7. It's not the very first one. The first one I've loaned out to my friend David. But the logo is the same for all of them. Like I said, pick it up, read it, get back to me, let me know what you guys think. I don't think you guys are going to hate it. I don't think you guys are going to regret it. Like I said, I've yet to meet one that has. The characters are interesting, the story is interesting, and it's something that you just don't find all the time. So, yeah, if you do get the chance to read it, or if you have already read it, leave a comment, let me know. Hell, share the book around, because Lord knows kids need to read more. And certainly that's how, I got, that's how I got through a lot of reading was comic books. But in a world where comic books is kind of a dying art form, this book is definitely worth it. But anyway, all right, guys, have a good day, and keep on geeking on.